guys, Sean Terry here. I am with Victor Heredia, and we're excited to do this amazing interview. Now, Victor is a part of our Syndicate 9 Mastermind, and he is one of the elite people in the group. He is amazing. He does a ton of deals, and he has a unique way of acquiring these deals. He manages cold callers. He does pay-per-click advertising. And one thing I love about Victor is that people love him. He is such a giver. He tells people, he doesn't hold anything back. He tells them what works in his business, what's not working in his business. He talks about his specific numbers. And when we're in our masterminds, his presentations are by far the best that everybody loves listening to. He's won the best presentations several times where he'll do a presentation in front of the entire room and has done incredible things. And he is very connected in the wholesaling world when it comes to other masterminds, and he's always learning. And him and his beautiful wife have an incredible business and beautiful kids. And literally, he had a picture. You had a picture of you and your wife and your kids on the beach. And yeah. I mean, that looked. I mean, I was like, wow, man, this should be on a magazine of like GQ or something like that with you and your family. You got such a beautiful family, which is awesome. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So when did you get involved in real estate?
So as I think I mentioned the story before, I was watching Ty Lopez interview a guy named Jalen White.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was doing a ton of business, and I'm like, okay, what is this guy doing? But to me, he was just so young. I'm like, well, he learned it from, at that age, I'm like, he learned it from somebody. Where did this guy learn it at? So I just started doing some research. I got onto Google. And then I learned that he learned it from a guy named Sean Terry.
Okay, so you did no wholesale deal. You didn't flip houses until you watched that Ty Lopez interview with Jalen.
Well, we dabbled in real estate. I used to work for a wholesaler back in 2008.
Okay.
But everyone was upside down. Like no one had equity. Yeah. So it didn't really work out. Basically.
Right.
And then I did a couple flips, but nothing serious. I never, didn't really do that great in it. Mm-hmm. So like the first foray was when I learned about wholesaling, through, Jalen White in that Ty Lopez interview.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, so I met Jalen. We had a meetup we used to do every single month in my office pre-COVID, and actually Jalen came in. He looked like Justin Bieber. He was 18 years old at the time. It was him and his girlfriend. They came in, they sat down, and we did like a little presentation on wholesaling and what it is. And then after, he comes up to me and goes, hey, do you mind if I just kind of shadow you and sit in all your meetings and kind of just watch what you do? I'm like, no. I said, but what you can do is you can go get a deal, bring it back to us. We'll JV together and work together on a deal. So he got our courses and kind of went through it and stuff, and he learned, and he went out and got 3 deals, brought them back to us. We did them together. We JV'd them. We found buyers and stuff, and we each made about $54,000 in about 2-3 weeks. And then
that's good.
And then he's been off to the races since then. So
yeah.
So he's an awesome guy. I love Jalen. He's
really good dude. And he's doing really well now too.
Oh yeah, he's killing it. He's doing internet business stuff. He's got some all sorts of stuff. So he's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So you listened to him. You did some stuff, and tell us about your So when you said you learned about wholesaling, when did you actually just take action on it? Now, what were you doing? Did you have a job before? How did you?
Yeah, so I worked for a produce company. So it was a family business. So my cousin was a big farmer down in Mexico, organic bananas actually.
Nice.
And so we used to pack for Del Monte and Walmart and Whole Foods. So my accounts were Whole Foods and Walmart. Those were my accounts. I would deal with them directly. So it was a really good job. Yeah. But I was just kind of burnt out. And I just knew there was so much more to do, right? So when I saw that interview, I found out that Jalen learned it from Sean Terry. As I think everyone else has. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone I know, literally, like Sean Terry is the godfather of wholesaling, right? Everyone I know has learned it from Sean Terry.
Yeah.
So
It's all the gray hair right there. See it?
so then I did some research and I found Flip2Freedom and I ordered the course. The thing with me, since it was so much information, like for me, like I think you really need to do well at something. You need to be confident in your ability to do it and to know it. So I studied it for like 3 months straight, I think. And my wife was like, okay, you've been studying enough. I'm like, you know what? I just really want to learn the business. And so I studied for 3 months straight. And then after that, I started hitting the phones and I got my first deal in 10 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're working your job at the time, right?
Yes.
And so what was your hours there?
Pretty much from 7 to 4, 7 to 3. But since I used to manage the logistics, I was pretty much on call all day, all night. That's what I didn't like about it. It was a lot of stress because you're coordinating shipments from Mexico,
Yeah.
crossing the border, dealing with customs, hiring trucks, delivering it to distribution centers all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of stress. I was always on call, and that's kind of what I didn't like about it.
Right. So you're always on call. So when you after a couple weeks, after a couple months, whatever, studying, you made a decision to start making some initial calls. What did you actually call? What did you do? Did you call a list? Did you cold
So
call?
that was
sellers?
pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So at that time it was foreclosures.
Okay.
Yeah, we were just getting foreclosures.
So you pulled a list of foreclosures. You skip traced them.
Yeah. Correct.
And then
Correct.
you picked up the phone and called them.
That's all I did.
Did you use
That's
like
all I
Mojo
did.
Dialer or any type of software or anything like that?
No, and initially I was just calling manually with my cell phone.
So you're just manually with your cell phone, picking up the phone and calling people. That's taking action. So for people
Correct.
listening right now, the fastest way to talk to sellers and get leads is literally it could be pre-foreclosure or absentee owners, whatever it might be. Pull the list, skip trace them, and just pick up the phone and call. Everybody wants to get everything all set up, right? They want to have their Mojo dialer, and they want to have a CRM, and they spend all their time setting up stuff. And if they just pick up the phone and call, just like you did, then they get results. So where did you find the time between your 7 and 4 job to turn around and...
Well, the good thing is like the best time to talk to sellers is in the evenings when they're home, right?
Yep.
So I would come home, finish my stuff, and then just 3 hours a day, every day, just start making phone calls. That's all I did. And then Saturdays are a really good day. So as soon as I'd finish, my other job, Saturdays, which were lighter days, I would call all day Saturday, till 6 o'clock at night. Because there were so many, I found out about Alex Saenz and Carlos Reyes, and I saw all these guys that were younger than me, and I knew with my sales experience and my background, I'm like, okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it, right?
Exactly.
And so that's kind of what really motivated me to just really grind it out. I just grinded it out.
You just grind it out. So you pull a list and you got your phone and you just hammered the phones and started calling people.
Correct.
Immediately.
Yeah. That's all it was. And then just having good conversations. And then, one thing that I heard before was really, really good is I wasn't trying to find a deal. I was trying to find the solution for the seller.
Yes.
And I think that was the difference.
I think that's huge. Because I think everybody, gets in the real estate, right? And they just want to get that deal and they're thinking about the spread and they're thinking about that. But if you put the person first and you just have a conversation with them, realize there's a person on the other end and you just got to get that, solve that problem. If you can figure out that problem, you can get the deal done. So it's interesting though, there's the ability and that motivation to work your entire job all day from 7 to 4 and then come home, kiss the wife, say hey to the kids, and then turn around and actually go to work and spend another 3 hours on the phone to make that transition.
But that's kind of what it takes. I mean, that's what it takes. I think I've heard the story like Tony Robbins, he was a janitor, and then at nighttime he would work on his other business, and I mean, that's the only way to do it. Unless you have money already, then most people don't.
Right. I think people underestimate the amount of work it has to take to go out and eventually get that deal. So let's just try to think about it right here. So you did 3 hours a night, and then you did all day on Saturday. How many people do you think you called and talked to get that first deal after 3 weeks?
Well, I was calling, maybe making 50, 100 calls a day, every single day. But then also too, so you have better chances of closing in person. So I was setting up appointments too and seeing people in person.
Got it.
Because it increases your chances of closing deals. So I was doing appointments also. So it wasn't easy, but yeah, whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I think people need to hear that, because the element of effort and work and the tenacity and I'm sure there's times during there where people told you were crazy, or they rejected your offer, or they hung up on you, or they said never call me again, and it wasn't easy all the way through it. Picking up and dialing, it was, people, when you do that, sometimes people get mad. So,
yeah.
You have to have that thick skin to be able to continue to pursue. And what was the vision at the end, the vision in your mind that you wanted to create? What was that beaming light that you were going for?
Well, I always knew I just always knew it was possible. I mean, luckily, on the family on my dad's side that I work for, they're very successful. My cousin, he had up to 3,000, 4,000 employees. So I learned a lot from him. But one thing that he would tell me, like, most of the stuff we do fails, but it's a couple things that we do well that succeeds, that makes all the difference. So like, as long as you go from failure to failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm, as Winston Churchill says,
yep.
I think that's the key. So I just knew it was possible. So I was just gonna grind it out and do everything I could to get to that point. And I know it's one deal at a time. You're not gonna get 20 deals a month, right off the bat.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible point, because people they attempt something, it doesn't work, they classify it as a failure, and they quit. Right?
Yeah.
That's the average person. So they do something, it doesn't work, it's failure, they quit. Instead of looking at it, I do something, it's a test. And it's a test. And if you look at it as a test, then now you get results. Did it work or did it not work? Well, what could I do different that could make it work better? And then you do it again, and it's a test. And you do it again, and it's a test. I approach it, I am an adamant tester, and I fail, most of the time. And it's just like you said, and it's having those little wins that you can just pivot and change. We do it with our whole company. We do in every aspect of life, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But
well, it's kind of like in baseball, not to interrupt. Like in baseball, the best hitters are the ones that are batting at 30%.
Yeah.
If you think about it, they're failing 70% of the time.
70% of the time, they're missing, and they're walking back a failure back to the dugout, which is amazing. I think that's a great point. So, guys, listening to this right now, don't beat yourself up for failing. Just look at it as a test, and then figure out what can you do to get better, right? What can you do to get better? So I'm sure you talked to people and you said certain things on the phone that didn't work, but then you changed your script, you changed what you said, and now they became more responsive, and then you're able to book appointments and potentially get deals. So 3 weeks, you're hammering the phone, you're calling people. What was that one person that said, was it an in-person appointment? Was it over the phone where you closed?
It was in person. It was a husband and wife, probably in their late 30s, early 40s, probably late 30s. They were just having issues. It was in foreclosure. And they were like literally days away from the foreclosure.
Oh, wow.
So one thing that I am strategic. So what I would do, I would call the foreclosures that just been announced, and the ones that were like a week away, because I knew those two are the most likely to listen to. So that's kind of what I did. So and it worked.
That's
so
what
they were like days away from the foreclosure.
Yeah, when I first got started, this was back in 2003. We didn't really have a lot. We had flip phones back then. Remember, we had Motorola flip phones. So back in 2003, I got a pre-foreclosure list, and I would knock on the doors that were 2 weeks out from foreclosure. They were 2 weeks out. So those doors, I knew that if I talked to them and I could talk to them, then they haven't figured out a solution yet. That's the end of the year.
Exactly.
They're about a week out. They haven't figured out a solution
Exactly.
yet, and they're gonna be like, okay, now your house goes up for sale in a week. What are you doing, dude? You're still on the list, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so the husband and wife team, you talk to them. How did you pull comps? How did you figure out the offer? How did you figure all that out?
So I think for a long time I was just using Zillow. For like a good year and a half, I just used Zillow. I didn't have MLS access. I just used Zillow.
Yeah.
And that was all I used. And now there's other PropStream was REI Automator is a game changer, right? That's a game changer.
Right.
But back then we didn't have it, so it was just Zillow.
Yeah. I didn't even have Zillow in
used.
2003. I think there was like dial-up internet, AOL or something like that, right?
So how did you come deals back then?
So I drove the neighborhood and I took all the realtor signs and I called every one of the realtor. I asked them the square footage, the bed and bath, how long it's been on the market, and what they thought it was, worth, at retail or if
kidding.
I talked to realtors. I didn't have MLS access. I just drove around.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So
we got it super easy.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, we got everything at our fingertips now, and people still have a difficult time because they just like, I don't know what's going on. So, all right. So you talked to him, you got the deal, and what do you have any idea what the price point was? What was it worth? What'd you contract it for?
Oh, I still have it saved, but I don't remember. I just know we made like 22,000 on the deal,
nice.
and I split it with actually with Carlos and Sal.
Oh, did
so we
you?
Did
Awesome.
each. Yeah.
Love those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you brought them the deal. You JV'd on.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey Carlos, what do you think? This is a deal. He's like, yeah, dude, lock it up. Lock it up. So that's kind of how it worked. And it's funny when I went into Sal's office.
Yeah.
With the contract, he's like, hey man, you want a job? You want to come work for us? It was kind of funny.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
I bet he wish he would have got you. But you did it on your own. So you got that first deal, and that 22,000 or half of that 22 is 11, right? What did that do for you?
It was just proof of concept. Mm-hmm. Like at that point, I'm like, okay, so this is doable, right? Proof of concept. So it kind of just made me realize that this works. It's real.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? You remember the movie the book No Money Down with Robert?
Oh yeah, Robert Allen.
Yeah,
I read it. Yeah.
So I read that years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was real.
Yeah.
The funny part, I used to work for Don Lepre. And I met a guy that was friends. Yeah, I met a guy that was friends with Robert Allen, the guy that wrote No Money Down. They came to my office and they took me out for lunch. And I was too young and too dumb to take advantage of that opportunity.
What's going on, right?
It's just crazy. It's just nuts.
Wow. Yeah. Small world, huh? He had his offices down off of Baseline, right?
I don't. Or Don Lepre, Don Lepre, yes.
Yeah, down at Baseline. I remember driving by his offices down there a long, long time ago.
Yeah. He was a great guy.
Yeah, he was a total salesman. All right, so
total.
So you got your first deal. So now you're when did you quit your job?
So I stayed there for I don't know, like 3 years.
Oh my gosh, serious?
Or 2.5. Well, the reason is
you got family. It's family though, right?
It's family. They really depend. I mean, like I said, Walmart and Whole Foods, they're huge companies, right? They're very important to any business.
Right.
So I just wasn't willing to let that go. Mm-hmm. I was making good money too, but I had too much invested, and also too, I just didn't want to leave them because one, I had the sense of security that was part of it.
Sure.
But also too, like he was my mentor, and I didn't want to. You just say, hey, I'm out of here.
Right.
But it got to the point when I was making, in 1 month or in 2 months, what I was making all year. And so when that happens, now it's time to go, right?
So you were working a 7 to 4 job, and then you come home, and then on the weekends, and you continue. So you got that first check, and you continued to call. Did you continue to call, and how did you transition while you're working your job to get to the point where have the ability to make more in 2 months than you do on your full-time job? What did that look like?
Yeah. So I think what really helped me too, because of my background, in that company, it was a very corporate company, but also too, like being able to see how I grew, I realized like you have to leverage people and resources. Mm-hmm. So what I started doing, once I closed like my 4th or 5th deal, I'm like, okay, after every deal, I would get a caller, and then another caller, mm-hmm. and then another caller. And so after every deal, I would hire a caller just to scale that business, because I realized that I knew that if I called for 6 months straight, I was going to burn out. Mm-hmm. So I just started hiring callers right off the bat. That's kind of what I did after my 4th or 5th deal.
So now you cold called, right? And you kind of understood the process, and you figured out what to say, and then you close the deal, and then you'd hire another caller to come on. You give him a script, you give him a list.
Correct.
And would he use Mojo, or what would he use?
So and then at that point we started using Mojo. Yes.
Yeah. So they started going on Mojo, and you'd upload the list, and they just start taking off calling.
Correct.
So now becomes the issue. They're sending you leads, right? So they're sending you 1 to 2 leads a day, probably, right? Is that what it was? They'd send roughly 1 to 2 leads a day. Where did you find the time now to them go through all these leads and be able to talk to them?
So then at that point, since I wasn't cold calling myself, now I was able to call all the leads, 3-4 hours a day in the evenings, and then Saturdays all day long. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. So I just kind of shifted. Instead of cold calling the cold list, I started calling the hot leads.
Mm-hmm. And then, so after the first month, right? You got that first $11,000 or $22,000 deal. What did you get up to a point where how long did it take to get up to doing like 2 deals a month, 3 deals a month, 4 deals a month, stuff like that?
It's been so long, I don't remember, but I think it was probably like six months or so.
So 6 months, and you're doing a couple deals a month.
Yeah, it's still maybe 3 deals a month. It still took me some time. It wasn't until I got an acquisition guy that the deal flow, actually for a while I was doing 5 deals a month by myself. And managing everything, right?
Yeah, that's a lot though. 5 by yourself, you're dealing with buyers, you're dealing with sellers, you're dealing with a transaction, you're having to show the property if it's local, right? You're still meeting with sellers to get contracts. Yeah. You're dealing with title calling, you're dealing with different things that blow up and pissed off sellers, and pissed off buyers.
I was kind of like a workhorse. Yeah, I wouldn't stop. So, but you know what?
Same me.
Part of getting what you want is knowing what you have to sacrifice to get it, right? That's what it's about.
Right. And here's the thing, it becomes, when you love what you're doing, then it doesn't seem like work. You just want to do it all the time, right? So and you got these 5 deals, and you're you know what I mean? You're being able, you just find a way to manage it around what you're doing in life. Yeah, and people go, I don't have the time to do this. Yes, you do have the time. Just do it. You will find a way to make the time to make it happen, right? It just happens.
Exactly.
It just happens that way.
Exactly.
I take on new projects.
It just depends on how badly you want it.
Depends on how badly you want it. Absolutely. Okay. So it took you 3 years to quit the job. That's pretty amazing. You had some tenacity.
I got 3, maybe 2.5. Yeah.
So what did your business look like the day you quit? Did you have 5 cold callers, 2 acquisitions? What did you have?
I'm trying to remember. I had a team already.
I remember my first deal, and it was 20 years ago.
Probably. I'm just trying to think of, like, when I left was, I think mid almost a year ago, I think, or more than that.
Oh my gosh, it's a year ago, really? Wow.
Yeah, or maybe about a year and a half. I'm trying to think. Honestly, it's like a blur. It's like a blur. I've been working so much, it's like a blur. But I already had a team. I already had an acquisition guy, and I already had probably like 10 or 12 cold callers.
So you had 10 or 12 cold callers. You had an acquisition person.
Yeah.
Any disposition? Or your wife is obviously helping you too, right?
Yeah. And then
she
I was
doing dispo, or she was doing marketing.
She was helping me more with dispo, just stuff like that. But honestly, like 5 deals a month isn't really that much work. Like the lead gen is really the hard part, in my
Yeah.
opinion, right? But once you got the leads going, 5 deals a month it's not hard to dispo. In my if you got good buyers, right? It's not hard to dispo. So that was kind of that wasn't as hard. It didn't take as much time because one thing I learned in business is it's important to build relationships. So when I found a really good buyer, I really worked hard to like nurture that relationship. Is what I did a lot.
That's smart.
That made the big difference.
That was very smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you quit, you were making like 50 grand a month, 20 grand a month, 100 grand a month?
Yeah, I'd say 50 to 70.
So 50 to 70,000 a month. That
probably.
That enabled you to go to your family and say, "Okay, I'm done."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And actually it's funny, I even offered to stay, if they needed me. I just felt really committed to them as family.
Oh, heck yeah.
And on top of that, my dad passed away in 2014 and my boss, my cousin was his favorite nephew.
Oh.
So that there was a real strong connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just didn't want to leave them high and dry because you're off doing it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, but unfortunately, part of the impetus is that he got COVID in October of 2021, and then he ended up having unfortunately a brain hemorrhage.
Oh.
And so he was out of commission, and at that point I'm like, well, my cousin's pretty much out, and then he passed away sadly on my birthday.
Sorry to hear that.
So at that point, but I had already left. But once he was out, like he could no longer talk. I just, I'm like, okay, it's time to chase my dreams.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I did.
That's tough. That's
yeah.
Crazy COVID, right?
Yeah, it's nuts.
Okay,
nuts.
so you made the transition. You went full time. You had so your business. You had 10 cold callers, an acquisition. It was you and your wife doing some disposition. So that was the business then, right there.
Yeah.
You're doing about $50,000 to $70,000 a month, and then you had no paycheck now coming in from your previous job. What did that first month out of the gate look like? Now you're on your own. You quit your job.
Yeah.
It's just what you remember. Tell me what that that first month looked like. If you think,
it felt weird because I'm like, I still have something to do. Like I felt like I had, because the job was so there's so much to do because I was managing logistics and sales and dealing with Walmart, Whole Foods. Like it was so much.
Yeah.
It was a lot of responsibility. So you feel like, okay, I still got something to do, but I'm like, oh, I don't have to do that. So it was kind of weird. It took some adjusting. But then once that period ended, like maybe a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I dug into the business really aggressively, and then I just started really focusing on making it. And also too, like what really helped, I was able to see the impact of money has on people, right?
Right.
So, like for example, I remember when I was a kid, my cousin, he bought my dad a truck. He bought him a truck. Yeah, he was wealthy, right? So he bought him a truck. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, he just bought my dad a truck. Like,
right.
Wow, that's nice. And then he sent them on a trip to the Caribbean. His uncle, which is my dad's brother, my dad, and my mom. All four of them, and he paid for the trip. Hey, go to the Caribbean.
Right.
So like, wow, I'm like having that impact. Like I'm like, I want to be able to do that for people one day.
That's cool.
And then also too, when I worked at Don Lepre's office, there's a friend of mine, and I don't want to get too long-winded.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting story. It's a cool story because a friend of mine was there. I hadn't seen him in a while. And I'm like, hey man, where you been? He's like, oh man, I've been sick. I have a lung issue. He goes, I need an experimental operation, but my insurance doesn't cover it.
Oh, man.
And you could tell he had like the fear in his eye. It was almost like he was gonna die if he didn't get it done.
Wow. Jeez.
And I'm like, well, how much is it? He goes, it's $140,000. Wow. I'm like, holy crap, like, jeez. And this was years ago, right? And then 3 months passed, and I'm like, dude, like, where you been? Like, I haven't seen you. Like, what happened? He's like, dude, I got my surgery. I'm like, really? I'm like, how did you do it? He was like, dude, Don Lepre paid for it.
Oh.
I was like, 140 grand.
Wow.
And it wasn't a family member. It was just an employee.
Wow.
So
That's
I
huge.
mean, and yeah, it was crazy.
I didn't know that about Don Lepre. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. He would like there was one lady, I just think it's cool stuff, and I think it's kind of in memory of him as a person. There was a lady, she was really difficult to train. She was just hard-headed. And I told my supervisor, you know what, this lady is hard-headed. She's not gonna work out for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's too hard-headed. He's like, Victor, she's homeless. Dom found her on the street. He gave her a job and he gave her an apartment. And I was like, wow, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So
that is crazy.
yeah, so he would do a lot of stuff like that. So seeing the impact, and then my cousin too. My cousin would pay for people's funerals and their medical expenses. So seeing what money can do for people, I think had a big effect on me. It really does help. It makes a big difference.
You can make an impact in people's lives in a
you make an impact.
Yeah,
you make an impact.
Such a
yeah. So I think that's always been a driving factor as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm all about giving, you know what I mean? And I'm all about tithing and all about giving and all about, trying to, to do the best I can in that area, when called to do it. So
What's interesting, there's a scripture, it says, give to me and the floodgates will open to, I would open the floodgates to you.
Actually, it says, test me.
Test me. You're right. Test me.
Yeah,
test
it's
me.
the only place in the Bible where God actually says, "Test me."
Test me. Right? Yeah, it's true.
So test
and
me,
it's interesting.
And give to my way. It's like I'll open the floodgates. So it's
and the floodgates will be open to you. And it's interesting. As soon as I started tithing, honestly, like that's when the money really blew up. It's odd. It's crazy.
Well, there's a lot behind that because there's it's. They always say if your hands are so tightly closed and you're like, then what happens is you're putting out there's not enough, right? But if your hands are open and you give, it just comes back to you. It says in the Bible, you sow what you reap what you sow,
Exactly.
So
exactly.
And it comes back to you tenfold, right? That's where it
tenfold.
comes. It comes from the Bible. It's 100% true, and it definitely works, which is crazy.
It does. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Okay, so your first month out of the gate, right? Your first month out of the gate, you turn around and you had your people, and now you're doing your business. What did what's your daily routine?
So every morning I look at the KPIs for the callers. How many leads are generating. I'm really good at looking at how many dials we're making, how many conversations we're having, how many offers, just looking at everyone's pretty much results, right? Like how much they're working, your production.
So your best guy, right? How many calls does it take to get a lead?
So with him, I focus on how many hours he's dialing on the phone. So
so is it X amount of hours will get one lead?
Yeah, I figured like, hey, if you're and we did analysis like, hey, when your dial time is low, your deal flow is low. When your dial time is high, it was a correlation. Dial time was high, then his deals.
You're more time.
But also too, I think we realized too, like it's all about making offers, right? And I think we're averaging, like one deal per 30 offers, depending on the type of lead. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what the average is. So offers is a big thing. And then for the cold caller, just really like how many dials they're making as well, and being energetic on the phone. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we really kind of look at our numbers too. We don't have cold callers, right? We do deep PPC, and the PPC leads come in. And we look at the talk time on the phone, look at how many calls they make on a weekly basis, and how many offers they make, and how many contracts they get, and stuff like that, which is really important. But but for callers, this is obviously different because their main mission is just to generate a lead. So are they compensated on the lead produced, or are they compensated on the time spent? Because I know, some callers are compensated and set up in a way that they'll just pump out leads even though it's not a true lead. Meaning if someone says, hey, do you have a house you're thinking about selling sometime anywhere in the future? And they're going, oh, yeah, I have a house. Bam, it's a lead. You know what I mean? But it's really not a lead. Yeah. Really. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, so I look at how many leads it generate. But also, too, we keep a track. Every week, I talk to my guys and like, hey, which leads, like which caller is giving us good leads and which one is giving us BS leads. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell them like, hey, guys, I prefer no leads than BS leads because BS leads waste time and money.
Everybody's
like, don't send me BS leads. And if I see someone that's just consistently sending leads that aren't really leads, then we let them go. that doesn't work. So now our team knows, like, if you're going to give me a lead, make sure it's a lead. I'd rather we get a smaller amount of leads, but it being real than a lot of leads and then being all fake. So, but also the ones that do better, I pay them more per hour. Like if they're putting in 40 plus hours a week and they're generating leads, I pay them quite a bit more per hour.
So they're not compensated on the lead generator. They're compensated on the hours spent on the phone.
On the hours spent on the phone, but then also we do a contest every week. So whoever generates the most leads, qualified leads, gets a $50 bonus, which for them, that's good money, right?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
huge.
that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
And most of these are Mexico-based.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for every deal closed, they get a $200 to $300 bonus per deal closed.
Yeah.
So when we close a deal,
that's really good.
They're pretty happy.
So they're very incentivized to basically send good leads so they close, so you get a bigger bonus.
Yeah. And then they all pretty much say like, hey, no one else really, everyone talks about paying commission, but no one really does to cold callers. So that motivates them to get us really good leads.
Yeah, well, through $300, you know what I mean? I mean, if they're, they might make that in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. So they make $300 on a deal, right? So it's really important.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we do, and I'm giving away some tips here. Then we do every quarter, the person that gets the most qualified leads gets $500.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So now you keep track of all the qualified leads that come in, right? Okay. Yeah. That's really good. I like that.
And then at the end of the year, we do another contest. The caller that generates the most deals for us for the year gets $2,000.
Oh, so that's like a huge...
So they love it. They love it.
So do you ever go down? You ever go down to Mexico and meet them and go down there for a...
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I have. Yeah.
And so here's the big question I get from people, right? So you're doing the business part time. You get a deal, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 deal, whatever. And to make the jump from your first deal to $25,000 a month, right? To go from your first deal to $25,000 a month consistently, whether you're working or not working, what is the main component to go from one deal to $25,000 a month?
It's just more leads, and you're not going to get more leads if you don't do more marketing. Okay. So that's so you got to increase your marketing efforts.
That's exactly what I thought you were going to say. And is it personality?
Oh yeah. So one thing. Is
it person? I mean, is the main component personality? Is the main component you have to be super smart? Is the main component you have to be good looking? You have to be as good looking as Victor, right? Is that the main component, right? So, I'm trying to stress a point right here, because people think to go from their first deal to the first $25,000 and then go a month, then go to $50,000 a month, and then go to $100,000 a month. Yeah. They think it's this big feat, and it's like, oh my gosh, and how do I do this? And you said it. It's just the amount of leads you can effectively manage and handle without stuff falling through the cracks.
It's all lead flow.
It's all lead flow.
The more leads, the more deals.
So you would get a deal, and for you to increase, to go from that one deal to $25,000 a month, for you got a deal and you reinvested back in your business, and you got another caller. And that caller, what can that caller generate in leads if they're a good caller a month?
A good caller can do 10 leads a week.
10 leads a week. There you go.
Yeah. I know in the industry, people like, 2 leads per agent per day. Mm-hmm. A lot of people can't generate that. The thing with us, we've noticed our leads are really good versus other I guess call centers. Yeah. But they don't generate as many, but they're good leads. Right. So
I'd rather have less leads and have better quality leads than a whole bunch of fluid junk.
Exactly.
So 40 leads a month, and that essentially that one caller could generate one deal a month, essentially, if you're closing 1 in 30, right? So if you have 10 callers, you're going to have enough leads or more to get at least 10 deals a month. that could be done. So, and if each deal on average, what's your average deal size, would you say?
Last year it was 22,000. This year it's going to be higher.
Yeah. So ours last year was 21. We're already ticking this year up to over just under 24.
Gotcha.
So forth. So like even so, let's call it 21,000 or 20,000, whatever. So think about it: 10 deals a month, 10, on average from just cold callers, excluding PPC or any other marketing channels. That's $200,000 a month of revenue, assuming you have the ability to, maximize those leads, meaning talk to them, make offers, and call them.
Yeah.
So now
and be able to close on everything as well.
Yeah, to be able to close all and get them all done. So, so then, so I'm talking, about scaling the business and getting bigger, to go from a one-man show, doing your first deal, to scaling up to what Victor's doing, is lead flow, understanding that, and then hiring, right? Hiring the right people in the right seats to be able to manage those leads effectively, right?
Yeah.
So who's your best hire besides your wife? Because she's amazing. My wife.
Actually, I did an analysis on my most productive person, and it turned out to be her.
Of course she is. I know, she's a bulldog.
So yeah, I mean, your best hire is the person that kind of replaces you, which is your first acquisition, right? And then your second, and then your third, and you go from there. Right? So that's your best hire, the acquisition that's going to replace you. But since it's the first hire, or maybe not the first hire, but the most important hire,
right.
You have to make sure it's someone that you trust and that you have a good relationship with.
Right.
So I think that's and actually I heard it from you. You were speaking on stage, and you said you have to stack your acquisitions. Like that's what you said. I remember you said that you have to stack your acquisitions. I think it's so true, because the more acquisitions you have, the more offers you make, the more deals you get.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I mean, because when you scale the leads, you inevitably have to scale your acquisition team. You scale the leads, you scale your acquisition. You scale your leads, you scale your acquisition. You know what I mean? Every time we bring on another acquisition, we increase our budgets on our PPC campaigns to provide enough leads for that acquisition to be able to close more deals. So then we bring on someone else, and then we bring up leads, and we bring in else and leads, and then it just continues to grow in that fashion. And no, okay, so this is like a far out question. Where do you see the limit on this?
On the business?
Yeah, could you have 50 acquisitions?
I think it's possible if the lead flow is there. I mean, I know there's some guys that are doing $1 million a month wholesaling. I think there's even a couple doing $2 million a month wholesaling.
Yeah.
So I think their operation is different, of course. Mm-hmm. I think to get to that level, you got to do a lot more PPC, which we're doing PPC now. Mm-hmm. It's really, not that you can't scale cold calling, but it's hard to really scale it to $1 million a month, I think. But I think with PPC, you could definitely do it.
Well, I'm telling you, PPC, direct mail, and TV, those are the three pillars that you can do 50 million a month. You know what I mean? I mean 50 million a year. So the roadblock that for us right now, right? Because we can scale, and when it comes to PPC, we're so dialed in, we can scale it. Direct mail, we've got that dialed in, I mean, and then TV is the only one we're potentially working on. But it's just people.
Yeah.
It's people,
Agreed.
It's people is finding good people. And the problem is, and I don't know how these startups do it when they hire 100 people out of the gate. You know what I mean? Because they just have people sitting around doing nothing.
That's called the burn rate.
Yeah, burn rate, right? Yeah, hire 100 and then 4 stay, and you get rid of everybody else. But that's it. Okay, so let's look at what does your business look like right now? So for callers and acquisition team and dispo team.
So I think total we have about 25 callers. Actually, we got 30 callers now. I'd say about 25 are so 20 are in-house, and then I got another 4 5 that I hired outside. Mm-hmm. And then we got another company, Offertopia, that we have 4-5 callers with them as well. So I think in total we have like 30 callers total.
Is it hard to manage like, 10 or 20 here and 5 here and 4 there and stuff? Is there, because there's got to be different leaders, right, that are managing
Yeah,
it?
well, my in-house are more work because me and then another girl that assists me is managing them. So they're a lot more work. They're kind of, they're more challenging. But everyone else we use is via Call Geeks. So Call Geeks it's Carlos and Sal's service. It's a really good service. They do a really good job. It works for us, and everyone I know uses them. So
Right.
that's what who I would recommend. If people ask me like, "Hey, can you get me callers in Mexico or this or that?" and it's just too much work. It's too much management. If I was to start all over again, I would just hire Call Geeks off the bat.
Right off the bat. Okay. So let's say I'm a brand new person and I have no caller. I've never done cold calling or whatever right here, because there's a lot of people that's never done calling before. Maybe they've done direct mail, maybe they knocked on doors or whatever. So, and they're going to hire a service like Call Geeks, right? To be able, and they get one caller that's going to call. What can they expect for the amount of time on the call, on the time on the phone that one caller would do a week?
So on average, they generate about 2 leads a day.
So they're going to do,
they're calling probably 35, 40 hours a week. I'd say about 40 hours a week.
So 40
but
hours.
But it's not one single caller. Like you pay for a caller, but I think it's like 2, 3. I think they rotate their callers, but you're getting 40 hours for the week.
Okay. So just so someone knows what is acceptable and good within the industry that they can expect if they're going to hire. So at least 40 hours a week, 2 qualified leads a day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 14.
Now, of course,
is that 7 days a week or 5 days a week?
5 days a week.
Okay. So you got 10 leads a week, right?
Yeah. Now that's 2 a day per caller, right?
Right.
But are they all super qualified? No. I mean, you're going to get some that are not good, but that's the nature of the beast.
But at least you get 2 leads coming in potentially a week. Now you might get 3 one day and 1 day, and then 4 one day, and then 2. It just kind of averages out. So it's like if you don't freak out if you get only 1 lead that day or none.
Yeah.
It's just part of the.
Exactly.
That's just the way numbers work. All right. So 2 leads a day. So what do you pay them? What's their going rate for like a caller? Oh.
So I think with Call Geeks, it's $6.50 or $7 an hour is what they charge.
So $7 an hour, 40 hours a week, right? So what's that? $280 a week.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 280.
So right, $6.50 to $7. I'm not too sure.
Let's call it 7 times. Well, so whatever. So they work 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. That's $320, right? So wait a minute. What did I just say? Did I say 7 times 4 is 320, right?
Yeah.
we're trying to do the math.
Yeah.
So so you have that. So you have $280 a week, and then you get 2 leads a week. So that's 10 leads. That's $28 a lead, roughly, right?
That's good.
That's really good. So PPC
really
could be at $40 to $60 on a cost per lead. So $28, you're good.
No.
So now
PPC I like because you're able to close like maybe 1 out of 12. 1 out of 15, whereas cold calling is 1 out of 25, 1 out of 30.
Right, exactly.
So,
okay, so now what list do they call?
So that's a lot of times people are like, hey, what's the best list? It depends on the size of your team. If you got a huge team, if you got 30, 40, 50 callers, you're calling everything, right? Mm-hmm. But I think if you're just starting or you got 1 or 2 callers, you ask yourself, like, who's more likely to sell? So you want to go after probate. You want to go, foreclosures when they start again. Inherited properties, absentee, high equity, 25 years owned. That you want to be more and more niche with your data. As your team grows, you need more data, so you need to expand those lists. You got to go more broad.
So if you got 1 caller, be very niche with that caller, and go after distress, foreclosures, absentee owners, vacant properties, high equity properties, elderly owned, tax delinquent, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then the more callers you add on, you're going to need more data to be able to do that. So where do you pull your data from?
We pull it from PropStream.
Okay, and then you have a skip trace service, right? So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's dataskip.io.
So we
created a
dataskip.io.
Yeah.
So anybody listening can go to Dataskip.io, right? You can pull a list, you upload a list, and you guys will skip trace it?
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
And then,
cool.
then I got a coupon code. It's Vic9.
Vic9.
Vic9. Because I think on the website it's like 15 cents a skip.
Mm-hmm.
So with Vic9, it's 9 cents a skip for 10,000 records or more.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and what's the accuracy? Like if someone puts 10,000 records, do you get, is it 50% hit rate, 80% hit rate?
So I'd say probably 85% hit rate.
Really?
But
That's really good.
it's actually credit data bureau information. It's really good. Yeah,
Nice.
It's really good. And a lot of people say it's credit bureau, but it's not. But this actually really is. It's not recycled. It actually every 30 days it updates. So it's really good data. That's why we started it, because it's really good data.
Yeah, I mean you're using it probably because you're doing that. Okay.
Correct.
So if someone's brand new and they hire, say, someone from Carlson Style Call Geeks, right, and they're going to, pay them $7 an hour, and they're gonna work, get a contract, and they're gonna pull a list from, say, PropStream or REI Automator, and they get a list of, say 10,000. What would be what's a good size list, a niche list that they could pull that get that caller good for a month?
So yeah, they say on average it's 10,000 records per caller per month.
Okay, that's great. 10,000 records per caller per month.
Yeah.
So so for someone new, you want to get 10,000 records, skip trace it through your skip trace company, right? We'll have a link in the bio, link into in the information so you can get there. And then they skip trace it. They give the callers, and now they come back. Now with these callers, what type of leads that come in? What type of follow up do you need to have in the background to get them?
So it's interesting. Alex Sines came up with a concept, 7 days of hell, he calls it. So they're calling those new leads 3 times a day for 7 days straight.
Yep.
After that, you hit them as often as you can. But it's with cold calling, it's a nurture game. So you have to really nurture the leads. You always got to stay on top of them. It's a lot of follow up. There's some deals you get after the 50th. Follow up, after the 3rd, after the 10th, after the 20th. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say. You just got to stick to it and just keep calling and just build rapport on every phone call and just continually call them. Mm-hmm. It depends on the situation. So like the more motivation, the more likely you're going to get the deal. If it's not as much motivation, it's going to take more work, more follow up.
Got it.
But it's all in follow up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think 80% of our deals come after, after the 5th sales attempt. That's kind of the industry average. Like you're not going to close a deal on the first call. I mean, it'll happen once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
But it usually don't. It usually doesn't. Not with cold calling.
Yeah. Well, even with pay-per-click advertising, I mean, it takes having a system to be able to follow up. And I know people, if they talk to a seller and the seller doesn't want to sell the property or sign a contract right there, they completely forget about that lead. Even though that lead is probably the most valuable lead, it's gold, because they might not be ready now, but they're going to be ready a month from now. And then because you built rapport with them over that month through your follow-up, now they're going to go with you because you built a rapport with them and you followed up with them and you wanted to see how they were going to do. But if you don't have that in place or have an ability to do it, well, guess what? You're going to miss out on that potential deal.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too now, because it's so competitive now, it's going to come down to rapport, because they're surely talking to someone else.
Yeah.
Or someone else has called them. So it's going to come down to rapport and trust. So with us, we try to give them a lot of certainty in us as a company and as a person. Like, hey, we're here for you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to close. Like we give them a lot of certainty.
So let's go back to So now the lead comes in. I want to go back to, because we're in as the time of recording this, in a historically low inventory environment nationally right now, right? And I've been through several different market cycles when it comes to real estate, and you modify or change and pivot your offer price, how much you can offer, your in the way you offer stuff, you're pricing the seller primarily in structure and deal and stuff. So right now in our current environment right now, what is your typical percent to retail value that you're offering and then selling at your wholesale deals? So if you get a $100,000 deal, anywhere across the country, where are you getting it at? 55%, 62%, 70%, 80%, or is it deal by deal specific?
Well, it's deal by deal because it depends. So like we do business with a lot of hedge funds.
Mm-hmm.
So if it fits a hedge fund buy box, we could pay a lot more. Like there was a time they were paying 100% of ARV on some properties. Now not so much. Now they're it's that game is kind of over now. But they still pay really well.
So why is that over now? Because the market, we're now still at low inventory. Have they backed off on their?
It seems like they're backing off. That's one, but also too, like they'll pay top dollar for like a 2010 property that doesn't need any work and it's in a good rental area and the school district is super good. They'll pay a ARV, 100%.
Got it.
But most of our properties are not like that, right? We're buying stuff that maybe a little bit distressed or needs work, etc. But they'll still pay well depending on the area. The year build is huge, the condition is huge. How good the schools are is huge, a huge factor as well. If all those are really well, then we could pay more. But we try to shoot for, if it doesn't fit the hedge fund buy box, we try to get it at 65% of ARV. If not, we'll go up to 70. If it fits the hedge fund buy box, we'll go up to 80% of ARV because we still want to take into consideration our profit and also if there's any concession or any repairs that are needed to the property.
Right.
There's some guys that are locking up properties at 90%, 95%. I think that's kind of a waste.
Yeah.
They're just shooting themselves in the foot because they're not going to be able to sell the deal. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Now you get pissed off seller. It doesn't work. Okay.
Correct.
So these hedge funds, right, that you're selling to, what's like kind of the top 3 areas in the country that these hedge funds are buying? So
now they're kind of like in pretty much every major market. Not so much California because values are so high, right?
Yep.
But from Arizona all the way across to Florida, all along the southern part of the country, they're buying in all those major cities. Not so much New Mexico, at least we haven't seen it, but they're buying everywhere. They like Arizona, they like, of course, Florida, Georgia, so they're buying in Alabama, North Carolina. It's probably like 12 to 25 different states they're buying in. It's more based on bed and bath. Like if it's a 3-2, 1950, 60 plus, they'll buy it. It just depends on the area.
And what's that look like? So you get a property locked up, and what's it look like dispositioning or selling to a hedge fund? You give them the address. Do you have a contact person there? Do you email it over to them and they go yay or nay, or here's where I'll pay for it?
Yeah, well, we email it to them. We tell them the condition. We send them also our asking price, and all the bed, bath, etc. And then they tell us, yeah, we could do that, or no, this is our offer. So that's pretty much what it works.
Do you close on it and then resell it to them? Do you transactional fund it? Do you double escrow it? Do you assign
6 months, a year ago, we were doing assignments, but now it's we're double closing on everything.
Oh, okay. That's pretty.
Yeah,
good.
we have to double close now.
So. But that's not bad. Still, it's not like it's not you get capital. You're risking and stuff.
Well, some of them don't allow pass-through funds, so we do have to fund it. But we don't fund it until after inspection, so we know it's a done deal.
It's a done deal, and you have it. You have it done. Okay, cool. Have you had any of the hedge fund like commit to something and back out on you?
I never had. Well, it depends if there's a miscommunication on hey, it was going to be vacant. This isn't vacant. But usually too, that's why we buy them at a good enough discount. If they're not going to buy them, we'll sell them to another buyer. So that's why we don't like to pay too much for properties in case that happens. But I think it's only happened to us once in like 2 years. So it doesn't, if they come in to buy a property, they're going to buy it unless there's some major issue.
What other than hedge funds? What's your best method of finding buyers that you're finding right now?
So the best method, I think I would just look on REI Automator, and I would just look at the buyers in that area. But also too, you could just pull that's what I would just pull the data from REI Automator, and I would just look for absentee buyers in the last year that paid cash. And then you look at those, and then I would look at who owns more than 50, 100 properties. in the last year, and then so that tells you like who those buyers are.
Big buyers.
That's kind of what we would do.
And then
Yeah, who
you
the big
actually can
buyers
then
are.
look at the reverse engineer, look at the buyers. I mean, look at what the properties they purchased and then what they're actually, buying them for, right? So you can kind of reverse engineer what percentage they're buying at. Are they buying at 80% or are they buying at 40%? You know what I mean? So you can kind of figure it out. Okay.
And then now you kind of tend to figure out, who we got like a tier one fund and then a tier two. It just depends on, some pay more than others.
Yeah.
And there's actually some now they're hedge funds they're fix and flippers. So their whole fund is to fix and flip properties. That's what they do.
Jeez.
So which is cool because they're good buyers. They just buy less, but they're really good buyers.
Right. So out of all your inventory that's being done on a monthly basis, how many would you say are going to hedge funds and how much is going to these other buyers?
I say 85% hedge funds.
Really? Wow. That's amazing. We haven't sold one to a hedge fund. We probably should.
Yeah.
We're probably missing
Well,
out.
what we do, so the thing is, the reason is because our data is targeted towards them.
Yeah.
So we're buying in their cities, we're buying their buy box. We're targeting that data specifically.
Right.
So that's what makes the difference for us. Now, there's sometimes
it's different with PPC though. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think it's good because you have callers, you can get very hyper, focused with the data on what they're calling. Exactly. PPC is a little bit different because it's kind of, you get what you get.
So that's what we started doing PPC, and we're going to do more this year because we have investor lifts. You could, blast that deal out on investor lift and get it sold. But also too, like the strategy you and Nick Perry use, that we just reach out to agents in the area and say, hey, we got this deal. What do you think? There's some deals that if it fits the hedge fund buy box, but if we think it's a really good deal, we'll actually just take it down and list it on MLS.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why our spread is bigger this year because we're starting to do more wholesale. We're starting to see the hedge funds are offering a little bit less. So sometimes you're better off just wholesaling the deal if you can.
Yeah, because stick it on the MLS. It just goes. We have a property in Maryland. We just did that. Stuck it on the MLS, multiple offer, bidding situation, escalation clauses. The whole thing, and it bid it up like 40,000 over our price.
Well, we had a deal, and we still have it in Indianapolis. I think we paid 156 for it, 156. And so I talked to an agent, and he's like, "You could sell it for 200. If we list it, we'll sell it for 200 in MLS." I'm like, "Wow, that seems kind of low. It's as is. We haven't done any work to it.
Yeah,
we just cleaned it out.
Swap it out."
I'm like, "That's pretty low." And he's like, "No." He goes, "I'm like, why don't we list it at 220?" He's like, "No, you need to list it at 200." I'm like, "No, let's list it at 200.
We always can go. You can't go higher, but you always can go lower.
Correct.
Right.
So we got like 17 requests for viewings, 12 offers. We
What?
sold it at 250. Yeah, we sold it at 254. As is.
He was off by 50.
He was off.
$4,000.
Yeah, he was off. He was surprised.
He was surprised.
It's just the market's that hot. The market's that hot.
Well, there's no inventory in the entire country.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk perspective. What do you think? You're talking to the hedge funds, and we'll wrap it up here. We're talking to the hedge funds, and you're dealing with these guys, they're talking big money. They've got hundreds of billions of dollars behind them. Where do you think this market's going?
So, like I said, we talked to the head of acquisitions for Invitation Homes, and he sees it strong this year. He thinks 2023 is going to level off. I've talked to some other funds. I'm like, hey, what do you think is going to happen if there's a correction? He's like, if there's a correction, we're just going to buy more. That's what he said. So that they're hoping for a crash because they're going to buy more. But that's a buyer, right? I think in reality, the way hedge funds work, I think it's, hedge funds, these residential hedge funds, so they buy the properties, right? But they're getting their orders from the money. Whatever money that is, right? That's where they're getting like, hey, we want 3,000 properties in this city with this cap rate. So they're getting their orders, right?
Right.
And so once they fill those orders, they stop buying because it's happened to us. Like, hey, we're no longer buying in Indianapolis, or we're no longer buying in Las Vegas, or like because their inventory is capped there.
Right.
So that's number one. But then also number two, like they're getting their money at what 1% or less is what their interest rate is. So if interest rates keep climbing, there's going to be a point where they're like, hey, you know what? Interest rates are too high. let's no longer buy as many properties. That's my perspective. I think that's also likely to happen. Also, if there's a stock market crash, they're going to be like, hey guys, stocks are on sale. Let's start buying more stocks. I think that could be a factor too. And I think you might agree with that as well. If they see stocks are on sale, they're like, hey guys, we're going to stop buying houses. Let's invest that money into the stock market because everything's on sale.
Right.
So that I think those are all factors that really no one knows, in my opinion.
It's pretty hard to tell. I think the leading indicator that I look at on probably a monthly basis is inventory. Inventory is the driving factor. And you can pull that on realtor.com. I mean, here locally in our MLS, we can pull it here. I was talking to you earlier, my wife last night, we pulled inventory in Phoenix. There's 4,700 units on the market, which is the lowest I've seen in the history that I've been in real estate, which is 20 years. And in 2005, for perspective, there was 5,000 units and the market was insane. And it's more insane now. So what's going to happen is in 2005, we hit the bottom of 5,000 units, and then it slowly, gradually increased to 2008. We had 50,000 units, and the market collapsed, right, in 2008 because inventory ballooned. So if you want a leading indicator that's going to show you what's going to happen with the market, look at inventory. Go on realtor.com every single month, pull the current available inventory on the marketplace. I think last time I checked, there was 473,000 units, which is historic low nationally. A normalized market should be anywhere from 1.5 million to 2 million units. We have 473,000. So if you look at it, it's like crazy. So if you see that number start going up, 400 to 500 to 600 to 700 to 800, well, guess what? Then the market's going to start slowing. Prices are going to start coming down. The other thing, too, is pending sales. That number comes out tomorrow. Pending sales tomorrow morning at 6:30 or something like that in the morning.
No, I agree. I think inventory is the end all be all, right? But I guess what I was trying to say is like what's going to affect our inventory to increase substantially. I'm trying to think.
Interest rates.
Yeah, interest rates.
Yeah. And buyers, right? So the hedge funds, 45% of the hedge fund, 45% of the sales in Phoenix right now are just through hedge fund buyers.
42% of Atlanta is investors.
Yeah. So if they pull out or their orders are considered filled,
correct.
What happens to that market? We don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
We do know because half the buyers.
So our inventory will climb. Maybe it won't crash, but our inventory will climb. Yeah. And then who knows what will happen. I think if interest rates climb too high, I think that's going to really affect the market. But who knows what that number is, right? I don't. I wish I did.
So, but us as real estate wholesalers, what's great is that we have inherently low risk. Because we're not taking down a property, all of our properties, and having to hold them, buy them, fix them, turn around some. So we don't have a risk. We have the ability to move quickly, very quickly, and our risk is our marketing. But if you have a system on being able to contract deals nationally, then we always can contract lower and sell it low. You know what I mean? And still
I think we would love to have properties in Maryville for $30,000 a pop again, right?
All day. It's like
we would love that.
Yeah. Let's
so if that happens, all the better for us.
Yeah, let's do that again. All right. Yeah. So one last question is, when have you ever in your life felt like quitting?
When have I felt like quitting?
I mean, not in your whole life, but in the business, right? So where you hit a wall, you've struggled, and you just like you go to your wife and go, you know what?
Well, I've never.
Or you haven't hit that yet.
Well, I'm very driven, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the key. You have to be driven. I mean, you have to be driven, and you have to have that tenacity. I've always had that personality. I think I'm a little more reserved. Mm-hmm. But I've always been driven, and you have to, and I don't quit. I don't quit. That's it. I'm not going to lose. I have that mindset. I'm not going to lose. One way or another, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
So you do have to have that mindset. Like one way or another, I'm going to win. I'm going to make it. Like 50 Cent, get rich or die trying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you kind of have to have that mentality. Now, there's been times when I'm when initially when I started, when I was dialing, and making calls and making calls. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is not working.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't stop. And then an hour later, like, oh yeah, I'm interested in selling my home. Yes. They're like, wow, like it just, and it falls in your lap.
Right.
So the thing is, like a lot of people say, many business people had said it, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, over the years I've been doing this, there has been points in my business, and it's primarily done because of market shifts and market cycles.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? That when the environment changed and I didn't change, or I had a different expectation going into something, that it jarred me, and I'm like, oh crap. And then it brought me to that, I don't know if I can do this, right? Yeah. But it's interesting how, if we watch and people listen to what we're talking about, and they watch inventory and they prepare for, something like that, then they're not kind of blindsided when the market drops out from under them, and they're like, holy cow, because in 2003, there's anything I touched turned to gold. In 2004, everything I touched turned to gold. 2005, it was like heyday. It was like crazy. I was making money like all over the place, and I thought it was me, right? Then 2006, it kind of slowed a little bit. 2007, 2008, I go, man, I suck at business, right? So then I had to re-engineer stuff. So we might come through that process again, but the interesting thing is, if you stay driven, if you stay focused on getting better every single day, learning to get better every single day, and don't take on a bunch of debt and leverage, then you're fine.
Yeah. They'll be over leveraged. Like Zach Keeps, I think he finances everything at 65% max, which is smart. Right. And he has a ton of properties.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I think you just got to be willing to adapt to change. It's interesting what you mentioned, and I'll say it briefly. So one time I was out with my cousin for dinner. I'll try to do this briefly. And he has like 3,000-4,000 employees. I'm like, how did you do it? Like, how did you get to that level?
Yeah.
And like to this level that you're at. He's like, you know what? Number one, I was humble. He was, I didn't assume I knew everything. So I was always willing to learn from other people in the business, and I applied it to my own business. He was, number one, I was humble. He's like, number two, I was focused. He goes, and number three, I never quit.
Never quit.
I never quit.
Never quit.
So I think those are the three things he took away, that I took away from him. And another guy I met that was very wealthy also, I told him that, and he's like, well, I would add to that is you have to follow the trend, see what's trending.
Yeah.
And so I think combination of those four things, I think, are really good insights for people.
Yeah. And what we do is amazing, because we can make a fortune when the market's great, and we can make a fortune when the market's bad. It doesn't really matter on what we do as real estate wholesalers. And which is amazing thing, because not many businesses have the ability to do that. You know what I mean? Unless you're Amazon or something, right? So you know what I mean? So that's what's great about our business. And then when the market does suck, it's a great time to buy assets, right? Yep. And when the market is in euphoria, it's a great time to sell the assets,
wholesale,
right?
Yeah.
So it works perfectly all the way around. So
exactly, 100% agree.
All right, so if someone wants to skip trades for 9 cents, they go where?
Dataskip.io.
Dataskip.io.
And the coupon code is VIC9.
Coupon code is VIC9. So if you go there,
that's for 10,000 records or more.
10,000 record or more, you can get.
Now, if it's under 10,000 records, it's VIC12.
Okay, so VIC12, VIC9 for 10,000, VIC12 for under 10,000 at 9 cents, and that's great. That's a great service there. So Victor, you've been awesome. Thank you so much. Great advice.
We're grateful for you. I think everyone in the industry is grateful for you for what you do and what you teach. I think you've had a lot of impact on people, and I think I know for a fact you've changed a lot of people's lives. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, it's great. It's just it's just like anything. When you fail as many times as I have failed, in business, and you find the things that work, and you just continue to move forward, and you continue to proceed, and you continue to grow. I'm not there yet, right? It's always still just pivoting and changing with the times and changing with the market, finding the right people, doing the right things. I mean, I changed my entire business model in 2019 from local to national. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still adding people and figuring out and growing. But that's the exciting thing about it. It keeps me, I go to bed at 12 and I get up at 5, and, you don't need to have 8 hours. You're just excited about life and you're doing stuff. And which is great, and that's why it's fun to build businesses. It's fun to impact people, and you're doing it too. And I definitely appreciate it to be a part of the mastermind, part of the group, and giving all the content and the feedback.
We're happy to be part of it. It's kind of full circle for me. I learned wholesaling through you, and now I'm on this interview with you. It's full circle. It's amazing.
Yeah, we have a great group here in Phoenix. It seems like you got Carlos and Sal, you got those guys, you got
Pace Morby, Jamil,
you got Jamil here,
everybody.
you got Sperber here. We got a great group here, and everyone seems to be friends. Everyone kind of speaks at other people's events and stuff, and obviously you're here too, so it's awesome. So. Thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. You did a great job, and thanks for answering all my specific questions.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the time in the interview.
All right.